but to create healthcare that is affordable and accessible, to create safe and reliable public transportation systems for our citizens, to have roads that don't have potholes. I think that we can do all of these things without increasing taxes if we allocate our money to the right places and to the places that need it. I know in Rhode Island, we had a session-long debate about whether or not we were going to fund a AAA baseball stadium. And we have schools that are crumbling. We have, a lot of infrastructure problems. And we did vote to pass it. But ultimately, the team may not even end up staying in Rhode Island. And so it's amazing to me how quick we are to want to throw millions of dollars at places like Amazon and, big companies to get them to put their new headquarters in, but we won't throw that same money in our school districts, in our low-income housing to get the lead out of the pipes and the paint, in roads and sidewalks that people are using every day. And so that's a mentality that I think younger generations are going to change.
I also wanted to ask you, you mentioned earlier that the state assembly is not a place that's designed for sort of regular people to get into positions of power. So this is a part-time assembly. It pays only about $15,000 a year. So you are a single mom. Presumably you need to work another job to pay the bills. Is it hard to do this job as a single mom? Do you think that there are ways that different state legislatures are set up differently, but are there ways that states could change things so that the legislatures could really be more representative of the populations of the states?
So I am no longer a waitress. I actually have been a stay-at-home mom and part-time legislator for the duration of my tenure, meaning that I don't work outside of my legislating. I like to dedicate 100% of my time to my constituents. Granted, that means we live a very meager life, but I also have roommates who make life a lot easier. And I will say that I bring my son with me as often as I can, as much for him to get involved early, for him to get comfortable with the process, but also because I want other politicians, I want other elected officials, I want other mayors and governors to see that this is what life is like every day for a single mother. I do not hire a babysitter when I have a meeting that I have to go to. My son comes with me. I don't hire a babysitter when I have a doctor's appointment. My son comes with me. And so, I mean, it's funny for him because there are now press people at the State House who know Malcolm by name. But I think that we could go a long way to making it more accessible for people. This year, we had some free childcare available. We had volunteers come out and offer to watch people's children while they testified in favor or in opposition of bills at the State House. I think that's a wonderful way to get people more involved. But I think that we need to make it a more community-based thing in general. I love bringing my son there because it reminds me who I'm fighting for. It reminds me that I have a lot of work left to do if I'm going to leave this child a neighborhood that's even going to remotely prepare him for the real world. And so, yes, I imagine it's harder as a single mom who doesn't have the endless childcare money, but also I don't do anything halfway. And I am very lucky to have a job where I get paid to be nice to my neighbors and fix their problems. Like I'm not going to complain too much because it is definitely a blessing.
Moira, is there anything else that you want to make sure that our listeners know about you and about your district?
If anybody wants to follow how things are going on the campaign trail, we've got my website, which is just www.moirawalsh.com. And as for my community, I know that I'm a little bit biased, but I do think that they're one of the best collections of people that have ever existed. And while the Democratic Party really let me down big time this year, my community stepped up big and made me feel all sorts of Sally Fields. Like, you like me, you really like me. So I'm just grateful to them. And I will, do this as long as it's what they want.
All right. And if anyone would like to donate, you have a donate button right on that website. Make up a little bit for the Democratic Party not supporting you. So
I know. Oh, that was the biggest mistake of their lives. I'm going to be so much angrier next time.
I sure got you more press.
Exactly. Got me more fire in my belly, too. So we're going to knock doors hard. Thank you both for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. This has been really great, and I'm thrilled to learn just a little bit more about Rhode Island, and we're really excited about having you in the state assembly there.
Awesome. Thanks again.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
CleanTheHouse.org was started by 3 generations of a family saddened and angered by the daily onslaught of Trump administration outrages and the complicity of Republicans in Congress. Together, the family formed a plan to turn the House blue. Researching the districts considered toss-ups or leaning Democratic, they identified 36 districts that together can take back the House. Through Act Blue, they made it easy to donate to all 36 districts in one swoop. For as little as $36, you can give $1 to each of these districts. Visit cleanthehouse.org and follow at cleanthehouse18 on Facebook and Twitter. Help support these 36 districts and tell everyone you know to do the same. Let's clean the house this November. Visit cleanthehouse.org because you give $1.
Our guest tonight is Jeanine Calkin. She is a member of the Rhode Island State Senate representing District 30. Welcome, Jeanine.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. We're really excited to have you. Could you sort of just, start off by kind of introducing yourself? Tell us a little about yourself and how you came to be a member of the Rhode Island State Senate.
Oh, sure. So I've lived in Rhode Island my entire life. Never thought I would run to be an elected official. My background is basically in information technology, so I did that for most of my career. And then just in the last few years, I've always had an interest in politics and history, but, I was the type of person who would write long rants on Facebook, but, didn't really get involved until 2015. I was one of those people that had originally wanted Elizabeth Warren to run for president and was starting to get involved with Run, Warren, Run. And then it became clear that she was not going to run for president. And I had always been kind of a fan of Bernie Sanders. So when he mentioned that he was going to run, it was kind of like, all right, you know what? I think this is important. This is somebody I actually want to see get elected. So that really kicked it off for me. I spent the rest of 2015 and most of 2016 working to get him elected. I co-founded an organization called Rhode Island for Bernie Sanders here in Rhode Island. And basically we had a very strong grassroots organization to get him elected. And unfortunately, well, depending on, where you stand on things, we had worked hard to get him a win here in Rhode Island. But unfortunately, when he didn't win, we turned our support to Hillary Clinton, and we know where we are today. So, but as far as, why I ran in 2016, it was really just, seeing where things were going and talking to people from that whole time during 2015 and early 2016 and seeing how badly people were hurting. And, a lot of people were asking me to run, and I was like, oh, no, I would never do that. But here I am today. I just really wanted to try to be a voice for the people. And luckily I was able to run for Senate, and I was able to win my election.
So you recently made the news in early July, along with a couple of other women in Rhode Island, as incumbents who were not endorsed by the Democratic Party. Can you talk a little bit about that and sort of what happened?
So it was quite surprising. Obviously, some of the endorsed candidates, especially in Moira's case, somebody who had been a Trump supporter, an outward Trump supporter for that matter. And then also in the case of Rep. Marcia Rangland-Bassel as well, many people who've talked to me, and I kind of feel similarly, is that 3 of us were more outspoken progressive women elected to our first term. And it's unfortunate that, we were not endorsed by our Democratic Party for different reasons. In my particular case, the way the Democratic Party is, the way these endorsements happen is that each one of us in the General Assembly, whether you're a senator or a representative, there's a very, very small group of individuals who actually do the endorsements. So in my case, it was 5 people who had been elected to that committee a long time ago for my predecessor, who I beat in the primary. So they were still in that office. And unfortunately, because, these are friends and family of my predecessor who happened to be friends of the person who's running against me now. So for them, it was, I was not expecting to get the endorsement knowing their loyalty to my opponent. But in some of the other cases where, like in Rep. Walsh's particular situation, there wasn't an endorsement committee, and it was actually the Democratic Party endorsed her opponent.
And so what does that mean for your campaign then, to not have the endorsement of the party? But then I saw that you were endorsed by the Young Democrats.
So it's actually been an interesting situation that's happened. The amount of outpouring of support has been incredible. I've been contacted, from people all across the state and across the country for that matter, offering, donations or, offering ways to help spread the word. When I knock on people's, they say, I can't believe what the party did to you. And these are Democrats. So it's actually been kind of the opposite of what the intention of the endorsement is. So, where I live also is a very interesting place. There's, a lot of working families that are struggling, and I don't necessarily think that the endorsements mean that much. I didn't have it when I originally ran, obviously, when I was trying to unseat the incumbent. And I have not seen it be an issue in my particular race anyway.
But you are endorsed by Our Revolution, which is the organization started by Bernie Sanders and his supporters after the 2016 election, correct?
Yes. So I received the endorsement from Our Revolution, like you mentioned, the Young Democrats of Rhode Island, several other groups and organizations such as RI Now. So yeah, I think when it comes down to the actual issues and where these organizations stand, I'm happy to receive their endorsement because the issues that I care about are the issues that they care about.
Can you talk about some of those issues, what issues you were passionate about the first time you ran, and if that has sort of changed at all in your time in the state Senate?
Oh, sure. So for me, income inequality is a big issue. I've put in bills this year and last year to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. I think that nobody who's working 40 hours a week should have to live in poverty. I also believe strongly in access to health care. And because of that, I've also put in bills for a statewide single-payer healthcare system. And the environment is really important to me as well. It's one of those things where I feel like we really need to do all that we can, especially living in the ocean state here in Rhode Island. And my district is actually, it's pretty much all on the water. And if you look at maps of rising sea levels, it's going to really impact my district. So doing everything that I can to help try to, save our environment, prevent global warming are very important to me. And of course, women's rights are also important. I co-sponsored a bill this year that would have put some teeth behind fair pay for women and people of color, wage theft, making sure we protect workers. I was a co-sponsor on a bill that actually got passed last year for paid sick time. So, anything that helps workers and, some people who've been left behind recently.
So when you ran in 2016, you were running against sort of the establishment Democrat incumbent. And now you are running as the incumbent. Does it feel different to run as the incumbent now? Have you changed your electoral strategy at all, or does it basically feel the same?
For me, it's pretty much the same. We ran a very grassroots campaign the last time, and we're doing the same this time. We basically tried to reach out to as many voters as we possibly can. get to know them, get to know what their concerns are. Because even when I'm up at the State House over the last